gonna be freaking Kikyo this year. She's a bitch. And welcome to Anime America, everybody. Yes, you get to watch me road in despair about our Halloween choices. Oh boy. Of course, this year, some yahoo thought it would be great to dress up as someone we hate in an anime. And guess who got this vengeful sack of mean girls? So while I contemplate the best way to cleanse myself from my self-horrifying experience, why don't you guys sit down, grab some snacks, and enjoy today's frightening review. The summer 2010 psychological horror mystery, Shiki! Yeah, you can come along too. Why the hell not? Yeah, we can order out. Tonight's haunted tale takes us to the small settlement known as Sotoba Village, a town where everyone knows everyone despite this cynical sense of community. But nonetheless, it was an okay place to live. Well, that was until one fateful night when a new family moves into the mansion on top of the hill, bringing forth the dawn of mysterious deaths. From that point forward, the inhabitants of this forsaken town are thrown into a psychological thriller that will change them forever. Let's just hope that their survival doesn't mean others' deaths. Getting straight into the discussion, I think one of Shiki's most prominent features is how community is so ingrained in the storytelling. In this tale, our attention is mostly split between three main parties. Team Anime USA! Anime CSI, featuring Dr. Ozaki and his cohorts as they try to save everyone at the clinic. Team Silent Hill Goonies, apprised of Natsuo and basically all of the minors in town who are discovering the mysteries, all while dealing with that good old-fashioned teen angst. And finally, the Shikis themselves, aka let's call them Team SUCKY Philosophy Vampires, as they try to overturn the entire village and hope to make it a place where they belong. Now, before we dive deep into each of the parties, I wanted to say that for a horror anime, it wasn't very scary to me. As some of you know, I take lessons out of the Charlie Brown Guide to celebrating scary holidays. Unless there's cookies and crafts involved, I make like a horror movie stereotype and get the hell out of there. To be honest, I was entertained and engrossed by the overall plot, but the individual plot lines were real frustrating. With the Philosophy Vampires, the plot spends time trying to ask the question, who the real monster is. I did like how the show spends the first half showing the pros and cons to Shiki's being in existence. My problem is that when it comes to putting that existence theme into practice, it sounds regurgitated and downright arrogant. But anyway, I like how much effort was put into showing how human the Shikis operate. The emphasis on emotions like guilt and desire to live without retribution was really good. Sanako Kirishiki is one of my favorite characters in the show because of that. Sanako has a great mix of unwavering resilience to live, as well as a good air of mystery. However, I couldn't say the same for the secondary members of Team Shiki. Many of them felt incomplete and less sympathetic as time went on. Tatsumi was sly, for example, and my second favorite person of this group, but boy was he an ass. I felt like there wasn't enough time to develop him with too many unanswered questions. Chizuru and Seishiro Kirishiki were two sides of the same bullshit. One was annoyingly childish and the other was childishly full of himself. Altogether, I wish the Shiki argument had more time to flesh out, since it felt like by the end of it all, they felt too victimized despite all the terrible things they did. Though, this would explain why I couldn't care less for any of the human narratives either. Much attention was focused on Team CSI and the other adults with defined roles in town, since they are the ones that, from a human perspective, were in the acceptable protocol to actually solve things. Toshio Ozaki, at a good consequence, got the most character development in this anime, but at the sacrifice of having his emotions pushed to their limits. If anything, he was the character who sparked the who is more of a monster debate so directly. But even when I felt bad for him on many instances, I could also never fully sympathize with him. I mean, the town put him into such a difficult position that it's a no-brainer he would be so stressed out. Yet, I guess his personality or his results at the show's climax was what did it for me. Maybe that's just the show's point, since so much of the show's more controversial moments stemmed from him, but I just don't know. Along with him of mention comes with his childhood friend and local clergyman, Seishin Muroi. Not surprisingly, Seishin decides to take the pacifism stance of the argument, saying that despite the situation, it doesn't constitute murder, and for a point, I agree with him. He proves to be a decent foil to Ozuki, who ultimately decides to take the unearthly measures into action. I feel like Seishin was also the audience's buffer for the events of the anime. However, I also don't fully sympathize with him either, because he, along with many others in town, refused to make any real decision of impact until it was all too late. Yes, Ozuki was criticized for sounding foolish by both human and Shiki alike, but at least he was actively doing shit. Seishin knew what was happening and just sat there with his hands unfolded, which is why I think he is also in the wrong to some degree. Yes, he might have not been one of the countless townspeople waiting for their fates to happen, but doing what he could just wasn't enough. Giving us his decision in the end though, I won't frown him on that because he did make one. Same goes for our last group that needs to be talked about, Team Silent Hill Goonies, because this is where I thought the show should have invested more time in. One part of the small town mentality that really worked against the people, but to great effect of the plot, was their dismay of listening to the youth population, because besides Dr. Ozuki, they were also the only ones who caught on to the Shikis early on in the series. But it doesn't mean many of them were likable either. Natsuo Cody is a prime example of this. I understand that as an outsider just moving into town, his viewpoint would be a bit different from others. However, he was a moody sack of flesh for a lot of the series. Nothing he did came off as likable, and when they did give him a character moment with his best friend Torimuto, it fell flat on his face. He just kept the same expressions of mad and cold, no variety or payoff for this prick. His only redeeming factor is his tuition and surprising way he went out in the end. And I will agree though, his parents sucked. Like, really sucked. Toru was kind of no better. He was nicer, but that's all I can say about him. Kind of forgettable in the end. Akira and Kaori Tanaka were the only characters in the entire show I felt a long sympathy towards, for being the brunt of the no one listens to kids theme of the plot. Anyone else to mention here?
It's Yuki.
Oh yeah, her! But seriously, Megumi was my love-hate relationship with this series. She was a great antagonist, but a toxic human being. She got a good amount of lines in, and by the end of the series, I kind of felt something for her. I don't know what that something is, but it was there. Probably indigestion. Conclusively, I think the show did a great job having both an entertaining plot while showcasing how deplorable two parties can be with their ideals. It's true that I thought poorly of most of the cast, but I felt like that was the goal of the series from the get-go. Despite the fact that in the end, I truly don't feel remorse for either side of this argument. Both sides had plot holes that I could not get behind. Regardless, I like the sense of despair working in tune as shit kept hitting the fan for 24 episodes. I just feel really bad for whoever has to clean it up. Yeah, I know you want to go out and haunt people, but I still have the rest of this video to do. Okay, fine, I'll take you out while our audience enjoys this commercial break, I guess. And now it's time for our fun-filled segment, the Community Corner. The time where I give a shout out to other creative outlets in the anime community in hopes that more people will have a look-see. This will be the first one suggested by you lovely people at home, and taking a look at this content myself, I will say that I always love showcasing a fellow reviewer. So, coming in at 25,000 subscribers, the Shadow ACS channel specializes in analysis, top 10s, and even has videos about... yeah, I'm just gonna bookmark that. His recent Basculus video does an interesting job on highlighting the show's action scenes as an example. It's that type of homey podcast-like commentary that feels passionately thought through, which comes to a thumbs up from me. If you want to enjoy interesting deep commentary that you can enjoy any time of the day, then why not head over to youtube.com/ShadowACS and check him out. Maybe throw a sub his way if you want to stay for more. And tell him from me he's got a totes of buttery voice. Now, if you know of any creative outlets that need attention in this world of anime, either comment down below or at AAShannon on Twitter with the hashtag CommunityCorner to tell me all about it. In this time where outreach is more important than ever, well, I may be just one girl on the internet, I will always try my best. Shiki was produced by Daume, who according to my anime list, didn't do many known anime, as of many at all. But just the fact that we have a studio that went from doing maid harems to this, to something like Yuru Yuri, kinda makes me giggle inside. So with that, I wanted to say that I had a fun time with the art direction of this show. The distinct character designs, as kooky as some of them are, really help the characters pop out of the background, with those Shiki eyes being simple but impactful in design. It felt very Shiki-ish, which was a good compliment for the show's uniqueness. Special props goes to the character design of Megumi because of how well it fit her character arc as an out-of-place dreamer who only wants to live in the big city. I also like some of the designs of the townsfolk, as the show took time to give them clarity during the normal scenes. Though I can't lie in saying that the gory moments were where the show shines best. Episodes 18 to 22, you could tell were heavily invested in terms of bringing out utter chaos. While the show wasn't a feast for the eyes, it didn't have to be because of the psychological thriller roots. I had more fun watching everyone be horrible piles of flesh to each other than finding anything awe-inspiring. Though I thought that the opening and ending sequences were pretty cool. Not something I watched every time, but still watchable to notice how in tune the music was to the animation. Sound direction is a slightly different story. As a proud scaredy baby, I'm amazed I wasn't very scared by any of the big noises. I was more trained in its audible cues than anything, which is kind of disappointing. Oh no, here comes the everyone's being a dick track. Oh no, here comes the something is being a creepster in the corner music. Oh no, here comes the no, fuck this guy. He was eerily perverted without being perverted. But you know what wasn't ethically gouging? The dub! Perfect segue. Being made in 2010, a lot of this new age's greenhorns had not fully arrived at the Funimation scene yet, so this series was chock full of veterans. For better or worse, the cast was placed in roles that in my opinion they felt the most home in. J. Michael Tatum played the competent eccentric, David Wald played the calm calculative type, and Tia Ballard can still play one good bitch. No one is a standout voice in my opinion, which is okay, but kinda disappointing. But I still recommend the dub for the sake of getting absorbed into the thriller aspect of it all. It's just easier when you don't have to read subtitles for immersion's sake. Hey, what time is it? Oh, I got like 3 minutes before we segue to the next part? Well, I guess that means I have time to eat this seemingly innocent pineapple that was just put here for no reason. Ow! What was that? Ghouls and girls, it's time for that wonderful after show, the part where we crack all secrets wide open and talk about the show's juice, your insides. This segment is for those who have already finished the series. Without further ado, this is your final spoiler warning. So, I was gonna talk about whether the humans or the Shiki made up better arguments for you guys to think about at home. But I changed my mind. We are gonna talk about the other underlying theme of Shiki, the small town mentality. The reason I'm interested is because of the growing amount of small-town revival anime that have been popping up in recent years. Sakura Quest being one of my favorites of that bunch because it showcases the good points of being in a small town while not ignoring its flaws and how to raise a town better. So when Shiki really got into commentating about the faults of small towns, my ears perked up joyfully. As for now, let me point you all to what Megumi said right before her death.
You like living in a podunk town where nothing ever changes! You think that anyone from outside the village is some kind of freak! You don't even realize how backwards and lame you all are! I hate this place!
At first, listening to Megumi, a character who already had a bias against Sotoba, might sound discrediting. Megumi, along with other characters in the series, make similar points of frustration and alienation when living in Sotoba, from Natsuo and his family being referenced blatantly by the townspeople as outsiders, to the sheer lack of privacy one feels when everyone in town is talking about someone else's business. Heck, even among their own age groups, if someone in their circles is too different from the rest, they have no business of wanting to connect with them and instead chooses to isolate them. They never listen, and not only do these people express a fear of the unknown Shiki, but a fear of change and abnormality. Kinda hypocritical when you think about what a lot of the humans say towards the Shiki by the end of the series. It's made to sound arrogantly selfish and cruel. Again, I understand that it is a thriller, emotions were hyped up, but when you compare this mentality to the talks brought forth in an anime like Sakura Quest, you can't help but think that the pros and cons are somewhat reflective, even if exaggerated in Shiki's case. Natsuo's parents are a good example because they seamlessly go out of their way to think differently from their surroundings, so much so that I question their genuine motives. Maybe they're only thinking the way they are just to feel entitled, like how the father throws out all their religious charms just to prove that point. So I ask once more, what is Shiki trying to say here? Maybe that, like the ashes of Sodaba's forsaken lands, we should just burn our losses and give ourselves to the big city overlords. Or should we all, young and old, just shut up already, sit down and talk about real communities for once? I hope it's the latter, because my tiny fire extinguisher can only put out so much. Shiki as a series is a fun, entertaining thriller that should be enjoyed from the outside in, and not the inside out. If you take the show at face value, I can say that you will enjoy the deplorable natures of different beliefs killing each other in a tiny space, but become very frustrated once things get philosophical. 95% of the characters were turds, the plot under a microscope was pasted together by turds, and the pros and cons to Shiki-kan was handled like a bunch of turds. And yes, it is still magical to watch it all burn. So under some consideration and 45 bottles of blue hair gel to lure one overconfident snob knocker to his well-deserved demise, I award Shiki with a recommendation to try it and a watchability rating of T for teen. I just thought that between the cheap Funimation Save edition in the US and the solo dubcast, it's worth a pickup for at least an impulse buy. Other than that, this series can be better off streamed if that's more your taste. As for watchability, for anime standards, this is not on Corpse Party Higurashi levels of gore, but watching how broken these townspeople become is the price of admission for a good teen audience. As for anime alternatives, let's start with the obvious choices and go with Tokyo Ghoul and Parasite respectively, because both are about a group of non-humans trying to live their own lives while humanity copes with their despair and gore that's brought from it. Next, I recommend the anime Yamishibai and Myoga. Yamishibai is the perfect anime for anyone wanting to watch something different for Halloween, as it's an anthology of Japanese ghost stories. And Myoga, not because it's good, but because it's still fun to watch 30-something people all be total dicks to each other in a small deserted village. And finally, I know this is out of place for a Halloween video, but you know what? Sock request, because sometimes you need a palate cleanser and all the brouhaha. So between everything here, I hope you'll find something to fill that void. I know I say this a lot, but thanks to everyone watching my review. I picked up Shiki because a couple of my closest friends liked it, and it was something I know we haven't done on the channel or not many have heard of. Can I please take this off now? It's just making me want to punch my mirror. Fine, we'll go haunting. Just let me wash my face first. Damn it.
Hey, we got a website. You should check it out. Link is in the description box down below. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, so follow us. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe to Anime America Podcast for more awesome reviews. If you're interested in anything of pop culture, check out our other awesome channel, Pop Spectrum. You'll be glad you did. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to Anime America.